Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered with Nikki Dawson. I have not recorded a podcast in 2 weeks. Well, actually, that's a lie because I did record a podcast last week and I had asked my husband to kindly set everything up for me. And I was like, cool, everything's done, so I can just start recording. Usually I double check everything and I do a little test run and I'll make sure that the mic is on, everything's working properly. But for some reason, I didn't do it that day. And I was sitting here chatting for half an hour and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be like minimal editing because I was like on the ball that day. And I got to the end and went and had a little bit of a listen. The mic wasn't on and it was only recording through my laptop. So you could hardly hear my voice and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what is going on? Had a little bit of a meltdown over that. And then I was just like, no, I cannot record that whole episode again. So I just decided to leave it for last week because I have had a lot on my plate lately. And I was just like, no, I need to listen to myself and I just need to take a break. And now I'm back. So yeah. It is currently Monday. I'm not sure when I'm going to release this. We'll see. I'll have to have a listen and see how much editing I have to do. But I would love to get to the point where I don't have to edit much at all. Usually I only have to edit if I am saying lots of ums and ands and things like that. But otherwise, I just let everything in. Because I guess it's just the way that I speak. What you hear is the way that I am in person. I'm sure I've said that a bazillion times before. But yeah. So a little recap of the past couple of weeks. I feel like I've just been so busy. And say not last week, the week before, I started training in the morning. So started getting up at about 5, 5:15 and getting to the gym for about 5:30, 6 o'clock. And this has actually been really good, training earlier in the day so that I am free after work or later in the afternoons. So I have been going over to my parents' house a lot more to help them after Dad has been advised that he can't drive for 6 weeks. So having to help Mum with grocery shopping and anything else that she needs, which I absolutely love. So yesterday I was not feeling the best. I just mentally was not really in a good headspace. And I did have a lot on my mind and a lot to do yesterday, which wasn't ideal. Wasn't the ideal way that I would like to spend a Sunday, but anyway, I did manage to get everything done. And then I went to the gym in the afternoon. I didn't go in the morning that day. And after that, I went straight over to my parents' house to make sure that everything was okay. Dad has been feeling a little bit unwell the past couple of days and had to sort him out. So when I went to my parents' house, my mum was just in the funniest mood ever. She is honestly one of the most hilarious people I know. I see a lot of myself in her. So all of my humor, that weird quirky side of me, definitely comes from my mum. And she was just on it last night. She was just being so hilarious. And it really did turn around my day. I was just like, you know what? I just love my parents. And you know what's so funny is that we haven't always been like this. So when I was a teenager, I was super naughty and I did a lot of things to upset them. And I think my mum held a lot of resentment towards me for a very long time. And it's only been the past few years that we have become extremely close. And unfortunately, it's because she has forgotten a lot of the things that have happened in the past. And she always used to bring up the things that I had done. And what can you say when it was 15 years ago and there's nothing that you can do about it? I would always just say, Mum, move on, please. And she just could not. That was just always like a topic that came up between us. So recently, obviously, she's not bringing up those things anymore. And we have been super, super close since. I mean, we're not having the same sort of conversations that we did years ago, but I think that's okay. Like, I'm happy with that because, you know, of the relationship that we have now. And with my dad, he actually brought it up yesterday. He was like talking about one of his friends, and he was saying, oh, her name is Nicole as well. And I was like, oh yeah, where's this story going? And he was like, you know, she was really misbehaved when she was a teenager, and now she's an absolute gem and she's so good to her dad. And I just turned around and I was like, well, sounds like me, doesn't it? And he was like, yeah, that's what I was getting at. And he just turned around to me and he was just like, you know, you've been really good to us. And I was like, Dad, don't make me cry. But recently, I think just with everything going on and like my parents needing a lot more support, I have been there for them a lot. And Dad does call me quite frequently as well, because obviously he trusts, you know, what advice I give and the support that I'm able to give them as well. So that is actually quite nice. And he also loves the relationship that Mum and I have as well. So I am very cuddly with my mum. So, and she loves it. She loves cuddles so much. So we are very much like that. And every time like he sees us like that, he's just like, I don't know, there's just something in his eyes when he looks at us together. It's honestly so sweet. And like, obviously I've never experienced like looking at like my child and like partner together. It's obviously because I don't have kids, but like that must be such a special feeling. I know a lot of people do say that it's something different when you see like your partner with children. So yeah, I don't know if that's what Dad thinks, but he honestly, he is very appreciative. Sometimes he can be a little bit demanding. So today on the phone, he's like, we've run out of milk. We've run out of this. When can you come over? And I'm like, Dad, I've got a little bit of work to do today. I've got some things on. And he was like, well, what time do you think? I'm like, Dad, it will be later on this afternoon, but I will get to you. It is okay. And he did have some alternatives to use because he had milk powder at home. So I was like, just use the milk powder for now and then I'll bring you some stuff. So I'll be doing that this afternoon. But otherwise, Shane went back to work last Wednesday, and what did I do? I had a dinner catch up with the girls on Friday night, which was quite nice. That was my dietitian girlies. And Saturday I actually went out. I went out on a Saturday night, and it's not something that I commonly do these days, and it's not because I'm getting old or anything like that. It's just I prefer to go out for a nice dinner, and you know, I guess my friends also don't regularly go out as well. We went out to the garden in Leederville. When we were out, this is something that I should talk about because I haven't been out in quite some time, and I don't know if things have changed recently, but the amount of men that came up to our table to try and start conversations was crazy. And I actually had 2 people recognize me from the gym. They were like, oh, do you go to Revo in Rivervale? I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, oh, I recognize you. And I'm like, sorry, I honestly don't recognize you, which does sound a little bit harsh, but when I go to the gym, I pretty much only have eyes for my friends and also what I'm doing in the gym as well. And it was quite funny because so there was a couple of guys that came up to talk, and one of them was like, "What do you train for?" And I said, "I just train. I want to be strong." And they were like, "You look like you were training for something." And we were like wondering, like, is she Ukrainian or like, what is her background? And I was like, "No, I'm Australian and I'm just training for strength." And also I do train for keeping myself sane as well. So it's a big mental health component for me as well. So, and that's something like the past couple of training sessions that I've had, if anybody saw me at the gym, they would have been like terrified of me because I was so in the zone, and honestly, I couldn't see anything around me because I was just like absolutely locked in with my sessions. And I think it's because I had a bad couple of days and I was just like, I need to train. I just need to sort of like get all my frustrations out. But anyways, so those guys were just like, "Yeah, what's your deal?" And I'm like, "I don't have a deal. I just go and train." And then honestly, it was one of the most bizarre interactions actually. And they were like, "Are you a somebody?" And I was like, "What do you mean, am I a somebody?" So they were like, "Are you like an influencer or something?" And I was like, "Well, I do have an Instagram page. I don't have that many followers, but like I would say a lot of people do recognize me, and I have had people see me in public and message me on my Instagram as well. So I think because of my blonde platinum hair, I am a very recognizable person, and I do train at also a really busy gym as well. So a lot of people do see me, and I guess I do tag the gym as well. Yeah. But in terms of me being a somebody, I am a somebody to all of my friends and my family, but otherwise I don't know. I really don't know. Sometimes I do have people message me on Instagram and say really lovely things to me and really love my page and all lovely comments like that. So I think maybe I'm a somebody to them, but I don't know. It was just quite funny. So one of the guys was being really argumentative with me, and he was like, "You're not Australian." And I said, "Yes, I am Australian. Can't you hear my accent?" And he was like, "No, you're Swedish." I said, "No, I'm not Swedish, but I do have European parents. So my mum is from Poland, dad is from the Netherlands." And they're like, "Nah, not buying it. You're Swedish." I was like, "Okay, if that's what you want to believe, that's fine." And then somehow my age was brought up, and I said I'm 34. Didn't believe that either. Thought I was more like 24. I'm like, "No, I actually am 34. And so I pulled up and then the last thing that they were arguing about was, I said, "I'm married." And they're like, "No, you're not married." I'm like, "Look at my stack. I am married. I have my engagement ring, I have my wedding band, and I also have my mum's wedding band as well." That is a stack. It really is. And anyways, they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, okay, well, if that's what you would like to believe, but I am. Some people are just like, I don't know, strange. And anyways, so I brought up my Instagram and I had to show my wedding photos. I love my wedding photos so much. Any opportunity that I can show them, I do, because I just am obsessed. And anyways, so I showed my wedding photos on my Instagram, and I was like, "See, I am married." And they're like, "Oh, wow. Okay. Yep. I was like, "There's my husband, my hot husband." And then they shut up about that. Then I showed a photo of me holding candles that said 34 to prove that I was actually 34, and did not buy it. But anyways, that was on my Instagram. Why would I lie about being older? I would never lie about being older. Anyways, there was a photo that came up on my Instagram, and you could clearly see my whole body. And the drunk guy, he was like, "Is that you?" I was like, "Yeah, it's me. That's my Instagram page." So he was saying all of these things, like little compliments, and then like commented on my ass as well. And I just said to him, "You know, I have a personality as well." And he turned around and said the most shocking thing. I just could not believe it. He was like, "Love, nobody gives a fuck about your personality when you have an ass like that." And I am actually not joking. That was like word for word. I then turned around and said, "Well, that's really disappointing." And he just looked at me. I just looked at him. And I think years ago, if somebody said that to me, I would probably go off. I don't think I would be able to control my emotions around a comment like that. But to say to him, "That's really disappointing," it made him think, even though he was quite drunk, it made him think. And he probably felt like a real asshole, because in that moment, like, I mean, I would like to think that I'm a nice person, and for somebody to demoralize and objectify me like that it's not it, honestly. And I think in that moment he was like, "Oh, maybe that was really shit of me to say that." And the conversation wrapped up quite quickly, and he just went off, probably talking to the next person. And one of his mates stayed behind, and he was like, "What did he say to you?" And I said it word for word. I was like, "This is what he said." And he was like, "Look, I'm really sorry." He wasn't drunk, and he was actually a really nice guy. And we talked for ages. I don't know. I was thinking about that comment quite a bit that person made. And I did say to his friend, I was like, "Look, I'm not trying to sound up myself, because I'm absolutely not that kind of person. But unfortunately, people do say things like this all the time. And it's not a reflection on me and the kind of person that I am. It is a reflection on them and their morals, and maybe the way that they've been brought up as well." So what can I say? What can I say to these people apart from, I'm not engaging with what they're saying? Where do people think these comments are going to get them? Because making a comment like that about a woman's body, and also basically saying you don't care about the kind of person that I am, I honestly don't know many women that would jump at that and be like, "Oh my God, like, you think my ass looks good?" out of that and go for that. No, absolutely not. And not that obviously I'm in the market looking for somebody. The funny thing is, my husband, he loves every part of me. He loves my personality for the most part. And he loves my body. He loves everything that I bring to our relationship. And to be fair, I don't think that I've ever really felt that he's like obsessed with a certain part of my body. So when I hear men talking in this way, it really is very, very disappointing. And I just think, like, what is everybody on? Like, is this just how it is these days? Like, men not respecting women? Or like, are they just like a bad bunch? I don't know. I don't really know. But like, I often have conversations with my husband about the way that men are these days, and it comes after experiences like this and also experiences that my friends have as well. So we'll obviously talk about these things because that's what we do. Like, what has changed, like, the dynamics between men and women? Like, men don't go out, like, even though as much as they say they're looking for, like, a partner, they want something long term, like, to a certain extent, that is not true. Like, I'm not tarnishing every man with the same brush, but, like, when guys are going out, chatting up girls, saying things like that, it's pretty clear that they're out there for one thing. So now I just think I was kind of lucky to be dating at the time that I was, or I have just found a really good person. And I would hate to be dating in this day and age because the stories that I hear about, like, my friends being ghosted, say, like, guys wanting certain things, like, it just sounds like it's so much hard work. And mentally, emotionally, I don't think I would be able to handle something like that. I couldn't deal, honestly. Hats off to anybody that is dating these days, but thank God for the stack. Thank God for the stack here. But anyways, that was quite an eventful night, but things like this just make you realize, like, what you have, and life is good. Life is good right now. So I'm not opposed to going out. I actually quite enjoyed myself on Saturday night. I didn't drink that much. I only had one glass of chilled red. It was actually quite nice. And then I also had, like, half of a, like, vodka mixer as well. Guys, I haven't updated you on when I had my interview the other week. So it wasn't last week. It was actually the week before. So it was on a Tuesday and I was working that day at the hospital. So I ended up doing it on Teams. I was a little bit nervous. I had prepped for the interview as well, and my supervisor at work was also very helpful as well. We went through a few things beforehand. And so my big boss, he was on the interview panel, and I was like, oh my God, I'm nervous, because when he's being serious, I don't like it, because we have quite a lot of banter and we get along quite well. And when we have to have serious conversations, I'm like, no, I don't like seeing you like that. So I was worried that he was going to be super serious when we were in the interview. But as soon as I said, like, hellos at the start, he started doing, like, this little princess wave, and immediately the nerves were calmed. So funny. When I first started working at the hospital, I took myself way too seriously and I didn't really act like myself. I kind of had this different persona and I had, like, my work voice and all of this. And to a certain extent, I'm still like that when I have to have stern conversations with people, but I just act like myself at work. Maybe not as hyperactive as I am usually at home, but when I went into the interview, I did my thing. I was like, hey guys. And then they did the introductions, and because there was one person on the panel that I didn't know, and then gave me my reading time, then came back in. And one of the questions I really liked the question. So I was like, oh my God, I love this question because recently I had to do XYZ, and they laughed at me, and I was like, I'm just being me. Why are you laughing at me? Anyways, I think when you try to put on a different sort of front, it can make you a lot more nervous. So I just went in there. I pretended like I was talking on my stories or on my podcast, and it honestly just calmed the nerves so much. I think that things went well with the interview, but we don't find out for a little bit. So I think it's like up to 4 weeks, hopefully sooner, but we will see. And I also did find out how many people ended up getting interviews out of all of the applicants. It was about 1/3 or just under 1/3. That is actually pretty impressive. I was like, oh my God, that is so good. Only 1/3 or just under 1/3 of applicants actually were given interviews. So that is crazy, hey? Like, people don't realize how competitive dietetics is. It really is. It really is a competitive discipline to be in. And I don't know what it is. Like, say, physio and OT, there is a lot more of them at the hospital. Like, say, for example, like on the ward that I used to work on, there would be like 3 junior physios, and there was only one dietitian. And how many OTs? I think there was like 2. And then they also had their assistants as well that were designated to that ward. We do have an assistant as well, but they're designated to the whole hospital. So there is definitely less jobs for dietitians as well. And I think that's why it is so competitive too. I was about to say, I'm very lucky to have gotten an interview, but I need to give myself more credit. That is something that I don't actually do enough. I don't give myself enough credit for the things that I've achieved and how far I've come as well. So when I was writing my selection criteria for my application, I was reading back on my previous selection criteria and altering that as well. And I was like, wow, how did I get in last time with this selection criteria? It was just, very different to this time. But it just goes to show how much change happens. And it was like over years. I thought that the last time I interviewed was a year ago, but it was actually 2 years ago. How crazy is that? So we've come a long way in a couple of years. And yeah, I just love looking back. I love reflecting and being like, damn, a lot has happened. So yeah. Otherwise, so last week I did feel particularly stressed, and I still was training, but I wasn't really on top of my nutrition, which sounds like crazy because obviously it is something that is a priority to me. But I think I was really time poor, and because I do have high energy requirements, I do eat a lot of food, and I would sort of like get to the end of the day and I had a lot of catching up to do in terms of eating and topping up my calories, and I just wasn't able to do that. I did have a day or so where I was feeling quite sick as well, so I've just had a couple of things going on. I did have a low appetite for a day or so, and it's just because I had to take like a dose of medication for something that's going on. Nothing too crazy, and I'm absolutely okay, but it made me feel a little bit sick. So there was that, and then being time poor and just having a lot on my mind as well. So yeah, there was probably about 3 days that I didn't meet my nutrition requirements, and it definitely showed. Like, I think it made my mood probably a little bit worse. But I do have a lot of similar foods every single day, and maybe just like some variations in like my snacks and like the components in my main meals as well. So like, say for example, I will always have chicken as my protein, but I will swap out the carbohydrate. So one day I might have brown rice, another day I might have tortillas, or I might have pasta. So just little changes like that make a bit of difference. So yeah, but this week I actually managed to do a little bit of meal prep today. So did a grocery shop this morning and cooked up my chicken mince that I bought, prepped all of my veggies. I made like a salsa as well. So yeah, I'm feeling much more prepared for the week. I do have to pop around to my parents' house this afternoon as well to buy the milk because my dad said that they ran out of milk. So I am going to pop around to my parents' house this afternoon as well. I think that's all we have time for today because I haven't updated you guys for 2 weeks. So I had a lot to say and I will be back next week. So unless anything else goes pear-shaped, then I will not be back in a week, but otherwise I will be in your ears again very, very soon. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.